At the crossroads of music, spirit, and sanctuary stands Kyle Spicer, musician, producer, and co-visionary of Hawaii's Island Sound Studios. From fronting the band Killed by Design to reimagining a legendary recording space that's hosted music industry icons, Kyle's story is one of sound, soul, and creative rebirth. This is The Significance, and this is Kyle Spicer. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. The Significance with Tyler and Signy starts now. At the intersection of music, spirit, and sanctuary stands Kyle Spicer, musician, producer, and co-visionary of Hawaii's Island Sound Studios. From fronting the band Killed by Design to reimagining one of the world's most storied recording spaces that has hosted legends like Dr. Dre, Eddie Vedder, Jay-Z, Beyonce, John Legend, and Eminem, Kyle's journey is one of sound, spirit, and building creative sanctuaries. We'll explore the stories behind his music, the ethos of Island Sound, and his vision for empowering the next generation of artists. Kyle, welcome to The Significance. We're really happy you're here.
Thank you. Great being on your show, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you were born and raised in Agoura Hills, California. What was your household like growing up? Were either of your parents musicians, and what creative process shaped you in those early years?
Well, my brother and I are about 9 years apart, I'd say, in age, but we're our only siblings, just the two of us. So we grew up in the same house, same parents. We had a good growing up thing. But I think I looked up to Brian, my brother, more than my dad as far as when it came to creative stuff. My dad was super creative as well. He was in the film industry. My mom worked for multiple different companies, and they had done music in their past, but I wouldn't say professional. I think my dad did. He was in a couple of movies that were musicals, but I think it was as an extension of his acting rather than as a musician per se. But my brother had played drums in school and pursued, had a band when he was in high school. So I remember that growing up, and that just stuck with me. And he listened to rock music, and that for some reason just resonated with me. So when I got into middle school, I wanted to play drums. So I joined the band playing drums and did that through till high school. And I actually didn't play in the high school band, believe it or not. And I still had my drum set. And my senior year in high school, I sold my drum set to buy new tires for my car. I remember that. It was that was where I was at that point. And then shortly after I graduated high school, I was working at Tower Records of all places, and I had a friend that I had heard about but didn't know. He came in one day to buy something, and he was asking me about if I knew any singers for, he's looking to put for his band. And I had been kind of singing in my car, and I said, yeah, I can do it. I just volunteered myself. And so, boom, I was the singer in this guy's band, and we'd go hang out and do stuff, but we never actually played anything together. We just said that we were a band. And it was kind of funny for a little while, but it made me sing in my car even more. And I don't know what I thought, if I thought I was any good. And then I had a couple of other friends, one who was learning how to play guitar and another one who was he had pieces of a drum set. And we just started kind of jamming together in our living rooms and writing our own stupid songs. And it became apparent quickly that I actually could sing, that that when I would just started singing, it sounded all right, I think. So I kept doing it. And I remember we got our first 4-track recorder, which was like a little cassette thing. And at the time, I didn't even really know what that meant. Like 4-track, what is that? What tracks of what? Oh, it's like you can record 4 different sounds that play back at the same time instead of it. And so I said, oh, so I can record my singing and then record a harmony to myself. So we did that on, I forgot what cover song. And I started playing it for my friends. I'm like, hey, check this song out. And they'd be like, yeah, I've heard that song. And I'm like, no, that's me singing. They're like, oh, really? I thought that was the version I've been hearing on the radio. And stuff like that. And it wasn't really that good. But when you're that young, those are the things that kind of pushed me. Maybe I'm onto something as a singer. So I started taking lessons pretty quickly. After that, I felt like I needed to protect my voice because I wanted to be a big rock singer. I wasn't just humming folk songs. So I knew I needed to figure out how to do that better. And all the other musicians I was listening to that were great singers were really pushing the envelope of screaming, and so that you had to learn how to do that. You couldn't just do it.
Right.
So I think I had a
Right.
good tone and ability to, with good intonation, to be able to sing and just hear the songs in my head before we were, as I was doing them. But it just took a long time to figure out how to do like the Killed by Design stuff. By the time I got to that point, I'd been singing for a number of years in a number of bands, and that was, I think, a culmination of a lot of that. And we recorded all of it ourselves.
It's interesting because it kind of reminds me somewhat of No Doubt, where like Gwen Stefani would talk about how when they got the band together, somebody had to sing. So then, they're
Right.
like, so it's kind of like
Right.
your
That's how I
situation.
fell into
Yeah,
singing in general. Was
exactly.
that was the role, and I kind of wanted to do it. I didn't have any charisma or anything then. We just were close friends, so we would jam. And I jammed in. I think we didn't have a PA either, so I would sing through the home stereo at whoever's house we were at, and I blew out speakers at all of our houses because they're not, of course, not meant to sing
Yeah,
through.
yeah,
But I would go
yeah.
like, "Oh,
Right.
it's pretty funny," until we finally figured out that we needed a proper PA system.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. But, all the little things like that when you're starting out, and I did not come from the school at all. A lot of musicians say, like, I grew up, jamming around my living room to I was like, I didn't do any of that. I never wanted to be a front man or a singer. I even thought about it until I started singing, which was after high school. And then it just kind of became this thing that if I was going to sing that way, that I needed to like back it up on stage and do that. And I was like, whoa, okay, but I got to figure out how to invent some sort of persona to
Yeah.
do that.
So did you know pretty clearly from a young age that you were gonna have a career in music, or was there, when you were younger, something else that you dreamt of or aspired to become? This is what I be when I grow up.
I figured I was going to end up in the movie industry because of
Mm.
my dad and my brother. And I got in as a PA, right? Not out of high school. When I was 20, because I remember my first sitcom, I was on the sitcom Sybil with Sybil
Oh
Shepherd.
yeah.
And I wasn't even 21. And I remember they tried to send me over to buy some alcohol for the producers. And I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not
I'd
old
love
enough
to
yet.
if I could.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That was my first show was working on the Power Rangers movie for my brother, but that was
Oh yeah.
pre-production in town before they went to Australia. And then I went right on to the Sybil TV show after that and worked on that for like 3 years as a PA. And what a whirlwind that was. Made me realize I didn't really want to be in the movie industry.
Right.
And I was doing music the whole time and writing songs. I remember going on my breaks, I'd go outside the production office on the CBS Radford lot, and I'd sit in my car and I'd put the music through the speakers and have my pad of paper, and I'd be writing lyrics during my lunch breaks to whatever we were working on in my bands at the time. And it was like, I think that's what really made me realize where I needed to go, what I needed to be doing,
Mhm.
because I was doing that because I felt like I had to do that. So I just, at some point, I gave up movies and started doing
Mhm.
music, pursuing music full time for nothing, basically. Starving artist thing.
So you had mentioned Killed by Design, your band with Billy Jones and David Sprang. So you mentioned how the band formed very organically. What was the name?
Form was cool. Well, that whole band actually has a story because
Yeah, that's what I
I
was.
was in a band.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
wanna hear it.
Yeah, I was in
Definitely.
a band called Ashpa with DJ Ashpa. Playing with Guns N' Roses, and then went on and formed a band called Six AM with Nikki Six and James Michael, I think. And so he's a known guy. I was in a band with him, but I wasn't totally happy in where we were going musically, and I wanted to do my own things. So I ended up leaving the band. I looked on an ad. This guy was looking for a band, and he sent me some songs, and I was like, I was blown away. I was like, what the hell? They were these
Whoa.
crazy, amazing songs. So I met with him and his band, and it was Billy and David, and it was this other guy named Adam Ross who was playing guitar, and they were his songs that he had written at the time. These were guys from Berkeley, and they knew all about everything musical and putting songs together, and were top-notch musicians, and the songs were amazing. So I came in and became involved, and they really loved what I was doing. So I quit Ashba and joined this band that we ended up calling the Darling Alarm. And all of a sudden, our guitar player was showing up at the studio, showed up with new lyrics on the day of recording. And I'm like, well, what's this? Like, we've been playing these songs and shaping these songs, and I'm recording today. He's like, well, I always felt I wanted to change it and do this. So he started trying to micromanage my recording vocals. And I was just like, what? And I got kind of upset, and I was like, I don't even understand what you're doing right now. What is going on? Why are you? And so the session went pretty poorly. And then he sent us a letter written by his lawyer girlfriend about that had decided he was going to keep all the publishing, da, da, da.
Mm.
And we were just like, what is all this?
What?
Like, we had basically formed the band, at least me and the other two guys, Billy and David, based on not having to deal with that bullshit that we had in our previous
Right.
bands, that we could all just agree and be on the same page, essentially married. And then we can just make music and know that the rest of that stuff's going to be easy to deal with because nobody's trying to outsnake each other or something. And we can split everything even and know our roles. So we talked, the three of us, and we were like, what is this? And we just instantly sent him a letter, said, yeah, it's reasons like this why you're now no longer a member of this band. Consider yourself fired. And he was totally like shocked. He was like, what? And we're like, yeah, later. And then so we changed our name. We turned it into Killed by Design, which is an anagram, I guess you'd say, but that's what it's called, of our initials, KBD.
Ah, okay.
That's, so we tried to
Oh,
figure out
That was one of our
different
questions.
words that fit KBD or KDB, and we had
yeah.
pages of different versions. And Killed by Design stayed. That's Kyle, Billy, David, essentially.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we formed that, and we wrote all new songs and went and recorded them all ourselves, and produced them, and then we had them thought of who our dream mixers would be in the world to mix it. And our number one pick was a guy named Ken Andrews, who was leader of a band named Failure, which is a funny name, but the band is very influential in music. And he'd mixed all kinds of stuff from like Beck to Nine Inch Nails
Wow.
and
That's impressive.
Paramore. And he just had a really great ear for it. So we sent off a thing to his management, and it got to him, and they sent us back and said, Ken wants to do it. And he basically, we were like, oh my God, really? So we had him mix it, and he did it for next to nothing. Like, he did it for the show. So those were the mixes we got. And at the time, he had just come off of mixing You Know My Name, which was Chris Cornell's 007 theme. He mixed that for that movie. And we found out it was being pitched for that Get Out Alive was being pitched for the next Bond movie. But we were really proud of all those songs, played a bunch of shows. And then our bass player got married and moved back east. And essentially that broke up the band. So we couldn't be, we only had the K and the D left.
So it seems that definitely the question is, it's not even a question any longer. It's a collaborative, excuse me, between you, Billy, and David. Did you sort of guide the vision, or was it like an equally partnership?
David was the engineer, and I'd say we all produced it because we were all coming up with the songs and the arrangements and what worked and what didn't, and making the decisions. But David was recording it all, and we did it at a few different places. The songwriting was split between the three of us on parts. I think it was mostly Billy and David that were coming up with the musical parts, so they'd have some sort of a phrasing or something, and then I'd come up with a vocal melody over it, or even Billy would come up with, I think Get Out Alive was Billy's idea for the basic, the chorus melody for the get out. Like, that was like, I think, his melody, and that stuck, and we just wrote the rest of the song around it.
In terms of producing both albums, it was once again a collaborative effort. And is there any type of meaning, a deeper meaning behind the titles of the songs?
I was into Latin phrases, so I don't remember how I came upon them. So I named the first one Occulta Veritas, which was after a phrase from Sir Francis Bacon, Tempore patent occulta veritas, which means time reveals all hidden truths. So Occulta Veritas means hidden truth, essentially. So we called our first EP Occulta Veritas in that vein. And then our second EP was named after Sir Francis Bacon's book, which was the Novum Organum, which means new instrument, which is essentially about with getting rid of the old and starting over with a whole new instrument of life. And so they were like deep rooted.
So would you say in your dynamic, everybody kind of did everything?
Depended on the song, for sure. But we were all open to whatever worked best. So if we were in the room and somebody shouted out a word, we were like, oh, we would all be like, that's it. We'd high five. And then that was the line. Didn't care who it came from, as long as it was one of the three of us. I was talking to my son about this actually today too, that the Killed by Design was kind of the end of my musical innocence when it comes to songwriting, where you're approaching it as an artist. And after that, I started getting a little more pop oriented and got into doing demo vocals, singing them for stuff for American Idol and things. So that it infiltrated my songwriting, and then I started looking at pop hooks and trying to think about that. And then I realized, oh, I could never do Killed by Design again now, because I just don't think about. I'm not that excited about pushing the envelope of uh, music, I guess, in that way anymore.
Yeah.
As
No,
I
that
used
makes
to.
sense. That
Hmm.
makes sense.
I think that's true with most artists too. You kind of you either get really successful when you're younger on what you're doing already, and you can keep doing that for the rest of your life, like the Rolling Stones or the Beatles, whatever. And you never have to grow up. You can just kind of look up music and keep your head up in the
Mhm.
clouds and just make
Mhm.
music. And then it's like bills. I have somebody who does that, you know. But the rest of us have to grow up and figure out how to write music that sells. I guess, which is even harder today.
I love hearing stories like that. That gives me faith and it gives me hope. So in 2022, you and your brother Brian acquired Island Sound Studios in Hawaii, once Avex Honolulu. How did this legendary space come under your stewardship, and what inspired you both to reimagine it? I mean, that's a big venture.
I was working for John Fogerty
Mm.
um, mostly, and I was kind of thinking about what's next. Do I move on? Do I get more artists that I'm doing that for? Do I go work at a studio? I don't, I didn't really know. And then Brian called me one day out of the blue and said, "Hey, I just had this tour of an abandoned recording studio in a shopping center." And I was like, "Okay, what, do they have like some equipment that they want to sell, or what's that? Is it next to
Yeah.
is it next to the dentist's office?
Yeah, yeah,
In the
yeah,
shopping
yeah, yeah.
center?" Didn't think much about it at all. I didn't, but he's like, "No, it's a really amazing, like famous studio." And I was like, "Really? Okay, send me pictures." So the pictures he sent me, it was like dark and dingy because none of the power was on and none of the light
Right.
bulbs worked. So they were like just dark. But I was like, "Is that like an SSL console?" I could see this thing behind me in pictures. And I'm like, "Wait." So I started looking it up online under Island Sound, and I couldn't find much. There was no website. It was down. It was not up at all. And I could find through like what the online version of IMDb for music is called, like discogs.com. You can kind of go see, and it pulls together credits for albums. And so I got to see, I'm like, oh, okay, I could see the albums that were recorded here. And it was just everything from Kanye West to, and I
Amazing.
started counting, and I was like realizing there's over like 50 million in sales at least, out of this place. Why does nobody know
Wow.
about it? So
Wow.
Brian and I talked to them, and at this point we didn't know what anything meant. We weren't thinking business plan. We weren't thinking take it over. We didn't even know what they wanted. We were just like, wow, this is an empty, like, I don't is it abandoned? Like, we don't
Hmm.
know. Is there any equipment there? So I flew out to Hawaii and came and toured it, and I was just completely blown away. I was like, this is amazing. So I started thinking about it and my experience in the world. Of course, artists are recording at home. They don't need the big, when you were an artist in the old days, your only access to being played on the radio was a great recording. And the only way to get
Hmm.
a great recording was to go into a great studio. And that kind of shifted and changed in the late 90s through the 2000s, where you could do more and more of that at home. But you still need big acoustic spaces for a lot of the parts of it. And all the big albums are still pretty much made in the big acoustic spaces, unless they're some of the more hip hop type songs where you have more sampling tracks. But those kind of guys like to come here and record the analog stuff. Like, they'll use the keyboards themselves. They won't like use a virtual version. They like having a keyboard plugged into the mixing console being recorded. It does sound different. You get a different performance. This particular studio is the only studio like this built in the state of Hawaii. We realized that early on. I was like, wow, so this kind of represents a whole industry for the state of Hawaii, in the sense that all the albums, all those 50 million records, would not have been made. They are the state of Hawaii owes this studio the debt of gratitude for that. Essentially, all of those albums were made here in Hawaii because the studio existed. If it wasn't here, they would have been made in Nashville or LA
Mhm.
or
Hmm.
somewhere else. And people wouldn't be saying, this Kanye record was made right here. I mean,
Mhm.
all the locals out here know all that. Even if they didn't know this specific place, they knew that those artists made all those
Right.
records here. So it's a bragging right. It also gives musicians the hope that they can actually make that leap to being a professional musician here without having to leave. So that was part of the vision when we were coming back in, for me especially, was that we can make this place work in the modern century by activating the intellectual property that has just been dormant for so long. Nobody knows about it. Talking about its history in a tasteful way so that the artists that used it still want to come back and use it, because they still do. with my brother's expertise, we were able to expand and do live performances here, which I credit him certainly as a genius move to activate the locals, allowing them to come into the space on Saturday nights and see local performances by local musicians here.
Mm.
That was away from the tourist area of Waikiki, so that it allowed the local musicians to play their original music for the local population, like you would do in Hollywood or any place else where you're going and you're playing your original tunes because you want people like you. It's the easier trap, I think, to be out here to people like how entertaining you are rather than your songs. There's a lot of entertainers out here that are really, really great, and you can make a lot of money and get really well known. We have all the original couches that were here, and so a lot of the legendary pictures from when the big artists were here, like you can recreate those
Yeah,
pictures.
yeah.
And I do that with tours, and we have tours on Sundays that when people come through, I'll like show them the picture. There's Kanye and Nicki Minaj sitting on that couch, and
Wow.
then they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna let me take
That's
a picture of me
great.
sitting there."
That's awesome.
Um, so stuff like that's really neat, and that's the stuff that was just not leveraged at all when we came in. So we had to make sense of all of that, even though we're not the writers. We're the we are the curators of all of that legacy, and so we had to figure out a way to make that available to people who want to know more about it. And there's a lot of people that do want to know about this place.
The original creator of the studio, Tetsuya Komuro, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, he spent $12 million building it, and he was a very legendary musician, songwriter, composer, and record producer. He was actually, in my research, said that he was one of the most influential figures in Japanese pop music. He built it to avoid flying to Los Angeles. And there's a whole history behind that, but it was in horrible disrepair when you guys and how wonderful that you and your brother, that you have that knowledge and there you are, you know, after your regular workday, welding and soldering and making things work. So it's just got an incredible history, which is really interesting.
This place has had an interesting history for sure. It's like, as I say to people, only private money really builds a place like this, especially these days. And I had somebody here this last week who used to be the president of SSL America. It's kind of Phil Wagner. I mean, it was great because he was part of the design of the studio, which is rare for me to actually talk to anybody who was involved in the original build. And he had commissioned these mixing consoles, which at the time were massive. And he's telling me, he's like, this place is in the top 5 or 10% of studios like ever built. And I was like, really? And he said, yes, they never built places like this with the connectivity, and it was throw everything at it, like state of the art. I was like, wow, it's really, really great to hear. It makes it feel like this is worthy of a place to save.
Was music, production and engineering always part of what you were interested, or did the engineering part come later?
Engineering was first, I think. Late 90s and computer recording became good. I was always kind of a computer nerd, so I started trying to figure out how to record at home. It was like hard drives and computers were starting to become fast enough that you could actually record audio on a computer, like a multi-track recorder. So I started doing that at home and getting okay at that, and bought some like home studio kind of equipment. So I would record my own bands until the Darling Alarm and Killed by Design, where we had David Sprang, and he's just amazing and way better than I was. So I let him do all that. But then, and I've kind of grown since then. But I was always kind of technically the guy who did that in our bands, or was always thinking about arrangements and harmonies and parts for the recording, not just the live. And then started working with John Fogerty and doing creative work with him on not a little bit of production stuff, mostly engineering because he produces most of his own stuff. But I learned so much from him, and um, how to be around. I mean, somebody who's done it all.
Well, clearly your background is multifaceted, to say the least. I mean, singer, songwriter, producer, engineer. How did these experiences shape your vision for the studio's future?
Well, I think everything leading up to this place
Mhm.
gave me a better intuition to know what I think needed to be done. But again, it is a totally changing industry. So I just tried to have
Right.
my ears and eyes open to figure out where we could go. In the words of Steve Jobs, who was actually quoting Wayne Gretzky, it's like I try to skate where the puck is going, not where it is. So I've been spending a lot of time looking to seeing where that puck is going of the
Mm.
future of music, so I can go there
Smart.
instead of just trying to chase whatever's going on. Especially with a place like this, we need to. I want to be trend setting. I mean, it's expensive to keep this place filled with the artists that can use all this equipment in this room, or it's like doing basic songwriter things. Or if I recorded something on my phone, I want to come make a cool song. Since it's not really a glamour shots kind of place here, and it's expensive to run it, and there's other studios that can provide that. It's a guy at his house or something who's really good, can record you cheaper than we can. But we're trying to find all the facets that do keep this place filled with education, ADR, voiceovers, book readings, seminars, tours, live events.
So, what's a typical session at Island Sound like? Do you tend to be more hands-on as a producer or more of a facilitator?
That's a great question, actually. Place like this, actually, and as owner, best case scenario, the way it should be running is I'm running and overseeing operations, and popping in for the bigger sessions and being when I'm asked, and having a staff or staff engineers to do that. And so far, that hasn't been the case. So far, it has been me pretty much doing everything. And I run, especially for voiceovers and ADR, anything having to do that's not musical like that. Um, you have to. It's tedious, and you have to know what you're doing. Um, so I've kind of assumed that role. Or the ideal situation is the bigger clients, and they come in, they bring their own team because they know how to run, they know how to work the rooms. And for me, I just make sure everything's working. Maybe I help patch in their initial setup with microphones, and then I leave them alone. And I can put an intern on them for if they need coffee or something like that. Like some of the Kanye records, they rented the whole building, both stores, both stories, both
Oh, it's
studios, all the
amazing.
rooms, and it was just going 24/7. In all of the rooms, they had little speaker setups with a little computer where they could write beats. So like
Mm,
Travis Scott was in one
mm.
room, and other
Wow.
in non-studio rooms, and then Kanye would go from room to room until he got bored, and then just sometimes would go home, but most of the time would crash on couches, and then it was just a factory for 5 months.
Island Sound feels like more than a studio. I mean, it's a creative hub. Was that sort of the intention from the start with you and your brother? I mean, there's a lot of creativity going on here between the two of you.
I took it, I think, at the beginning where I knew this was a huge, massive thing that was going to have many components. So I just kind of said, well, I'm going to start with this. And I just kind of bit it off in chunks, and believed in that the rest of it was going to work out as we went. You see the movie industry shifting really hard right now. And what the movie industry is enduring right now is music industry already did that. We already went through all of that, where it really finally hit ahead on the purveyors, the producers, the people who actually put the money out for the promoting the music. The big studios are starting to say, enough, we're just going to go to the cheapest guy. And the people who consume it are like, we don't even care. We'll take what is entertaining. So then it just kind of blows up the old way that people make money doing it. So industries die, and everybody's like, I don't know, what do I do? What do I do? Music, we kind of already went through that. It's still happening, but those types of big shifts have already happened. Now it's just where music is consumed and who's making the money off it keeps getting pushed around and shifted. Spotify, what new
Mhm.
deals can we work out going forward for new media? Um, and it's really all the songwriter and the dreamer as a musician who gets the shaft, because there's no incentive to
Mm,
be an
right.
outlier creative anymore. Like because somebody might see you and go, "You're amazing. I'm gonna record a record with you," and and then take the time to make sure that people see the same thing I see in you. There's just does not exist. It's You sound amazing. I went and looked at your Instagram and Facebook, and you don't really have any followers though. So let me know when you do.
Ri That's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking.
You've had artists like Jay-Z and Beyonce and Mariah Carey and Common in the past use a studio. When you have a high profile artist that like a Taylor Swift who everybody wants to know what she's doing, what she's recording, there's an appeal to the studio to have that kind of seclusion too. For those big artists like to rent the whole space out like Kanye, where also it's seclusion so they kind of do their thing and there's no prying eyes that are like trying to figure out what their next album's gonna, be.
One of the times when Ye was here, there was some paparazzi outside, but they weren't able to get anything, so they were only here for like the first day, and then they left. But they would like follow him around on the island when they'd go get ice cream and stuff like that. He was with Kim Kardashian, I think, at the time, so she was here. But people tell stories still about that that Kim, for instance, we're right next door to a Long's Drugs, which is CVS for all you probably other folks. Um, and she was like, I'm gonna go get some whatever from next door, and oh, do you need security? She's like, nah, I don't need it. She went over there and went and shopped by herself. Everybody knows who Kim Kardashian is, and people saw her, and people still talk about it. But it's like, hey, is that Kim Kardashian? Oh, okay. And then they just they go home and then they tell her, hey, I just saw Kim K at Long's. And it's like, oh, really? Did you say no? I didn't say anything to her. I just went.
So you've also welcomed names like Mac Miller and expanded offerings to ADR and podcast voiceover. So how have you been tailoring that experience to such a wide range of clients now?
The bigger artists, we still have them come back, but that's where there's less and less of the bigger artists going and spending big money to go to hold themselves up for a week or two. And we do get that occasionally. And as we're finding, as much, those type of guys that go by word of mouth, there's no advertising we can really do that puts us in their surroundings. So it's relationships, talking to people who were here before, and which we've been doing, and it's spreading, and people are really, oh, that place is back. And a lot of people in the new artists have heard about this place, but didn't even know that it was still around or an actual place they could go. So that's fantastic. I mean, I've had tours from people. I had a guy on a tour, and if he watches this, he'll be great. But he was from Mexico, and he was on a cruise ship, and he was on the resident band playing drums, and he's huge Mac Miller fan, had changed his life. And he was on this tour cruise ship, just cruising around the world, and had never been to Hawaii, and knew the studio was here. And he just reached out, I would do anything to come just be in the same room if he would allow me. And he had to get like a special day pass just right up to when his boat was leaving dock. And he came down, and I showed him the place, and I didn't even have to say anything. Like I did, but the pictures and the records, it changed his life just being in the space. It's like, it's such a strange thing, because it's like, I mean, I don't have to like tell you, I don't have to do anything. Like, just being able to walk through the halls and the rooms is like, will allow him some sort of mental headspace to move on to the next level of his creativity. And it unlocked something for him. And I seen him, he posted about it afterwards, and I was like, wow, it's a easy thing to dismiss the power of a space. You know?
Can you share a collaboration or session at Island Sound that surprised or challenged you in an unexpected way? I bet you've got a couple stories.
There was an artist coming from Amsterdam who had booked months in advance. He was in a metal band, heavy metal band, and their album had a guitar solo on every song. And he wanted to challenge himself by traveling the world and recording a guitar solo at different studios for each song. So he had mapped out this thing, and Hawaii was one. He was going to Vegas, he was going to Nashville, and London, and some other places. And I forgot what stop we were, but he'd planned it out 2 months in advance. And he was an unusual type of recording artist and wanted to do different things. So my idea was our boat dock to put a Marshall stack on our boat dock and run all the cabling down here and have him out in the marina doing a slash guitar solo and record him that way with headphones, but just for the vibe, because it's not all about being in the room with the equipment. It's about more than that. And that was the plan. So, and at the same time, I had Studio B going upstairs with a classical singer who had piano and really high maintenance, higher end session with a group of people. So turns out that was the week where Hawaii had the biggest storm it had in like 50 years or something like that. So you remember that from like a year or two ago.
Oh, yeah.
And it knocked out the power into the whole entire island. Like the whole island was out. Traffic. And we're in the middle of our session downstairs recording guitar solos to this. And he's standing right where I'm sitting, looking up and just jamming out on his Les Paul. Power goes out. So I'm like, oh, what can we do? People from upstairs came downstairs and like, don't you have a generator? And I'm like, well, no, we're a recording studio. We're not a grocery store. We don't have a generator to run it. And the whole island was out, so there was not much we could do. And I was talking to the guitar player. I'm like, how do we do this? He's like, well, I have the tracks I've been listening to them on my headphones that don't have the guitar solos, and I've just been practicing along to those with my headphones. I can do that. So I found a battery powered amp, little small battery powered amp, and then a battery powered recorder that was a high enough quality, and the microphones aren't battery powered. So I put a microphone in front of this little amp, and I slid open the sliding doors to outside where it was storming and wind was blowing, and I put the amp in the room with me.
Love it.
And then he went and stepped out with his guitar out into the wind and just with his headphones on and just played along to his thing. And I recorded those and sent those to him so that they could use those and add them into the music. So we just made do with, he came all this way and ended up recording outside on a battery powered amp in a storm. And we laughed about it, and he didn't care. And it became part of the whole thing,
I love it. I think that's
Yeah.
just incredible. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
What would you say is the hardest part of building and maintaining a studio in today's creative economy?
Building is easy. When you have any hardware, there's always maintenance. And the type of studio we're very analog. So we have a lot of what they call outboard gear. That's all the stuff you can't see. That's all here in the racks. It's like preamps, compressors, effects processors. And in this day and age, mostly preamps and compressors, I'd say, that I use for the microphones. And these days you can get away with one or two of those if you have it at home. And but if you're recording a whole live band, you might have 30 microphones set up at once that you have to record all separate. So that's what all this outboard gear. But all of it requires maintenance. Some of it has tubes. Some of it, all of it's old. I think the newest thing I have in here is the computer. Everything else is from like the 80s at the latest, I'd say. Maybe some stuff from the 90s, but not much. So I have stuff from like the 60s all the way up. But just like old stereos that people buy for hi-fi for their home, they haven't really improved fidelity. The ears hear sound as the ears hear sound. Digital was great because it got rid of the noise floor that you would hear, the hiss, the tape hiss that you used to have. All of a sudden that was gone. So it made making music differently. You could be more subtle. But other than that, fidelity is still the same. And digital is just trying to recapture analog still in a way because it's much easier to manipulate and deal with in analog. But you still, when you're recording it, not mixing it or manipulating, when you're recording the actual audio signal paths, analog, I still think is the way to go. And we're set up specifically for that, to record full orchestras or to record a simple voiceover with one microphone.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So do you feel like studios are still vital when artists can record in their bedrooms, or is that precisely why spaces like this matter more than ever now?
I think that it's a combination of all of that. If you're trying to save money and do it on a budget and prove a point that you can do it, sure, you can do it at your house. But you still got to buy some good enough equipment to do it, and it's getting cheaper and easier to do that. And you can do it on your laptop. And the programs, you can get free programs to record stuff. And I always love hearing that. And it's like, wow, the number one song on the radio is recorded on some guy's laptop, But you go listen to it and you go, well, it doesn't sound like a shitty laptop song. It sounds like a professional song. He just happened to use samples and use things where he didn't need to stick a microphone in front of anything but the singer. And with the amount of processing they're doing, it's fine. But I was working with a live band a few weeks ago, and they're a younger band, but they're a band, like a rock band, drummer and guitar, bass. And so coming here, that was part of what they wanted to do. They wanted to track the basic tracks for the song live. So we set up as a live band, but the singer was in the control room with us. But I turned the speakers off and everybody's on headphones. And he's playing acoustic guitar and singing. And the drummer's in the room and the bass player's in the room with him, but he's not playing through a bass amp. His amp's somewhere else. And then we had the piano player in another room through the sliding glass door. And they're all looking at each other and they're all playing together, but they're all in headphones separated into their isolated spaces. And I can record all that separate. But you get that live. And we just tracked, maybe we did 6 or 7 times through this, all the way from beginning to end through the song. And we got the one that was locked in. And then you take the drums and from that, and then you start building the rest and seeing if parts need punching in or replacing. And then you're ending up with a track that's built off of a live song that you recorded live. So you get that push and pull of the guys looking at each other and, all hitting on the same part. Even if it's not exactly on the one, it's the right spot and they hit it all together. So that's what we can do. And it's not technical. It's just when you can explode everything out into all those parts, it allows more people to be seamlessly creative together and kind of in the same space at the same time.
Have you had to evolve how you run the studio as the culture and business of music changes?
It's always the case in art fields, is the artists aren't good businessmen for the most part. So they leave that to somebody else. And most businessmen who are around artists are frustrated artists because they suck at being artists. So they end up just saying, screw you, artist. You don't know what you're doing. This is how you do it. And then they go, well, why am I not making enough? I should be making more. And it's like, because you're not writing the songs. You're not doing it. But, it breeds that whole grounds for the same thing. It happens in the movie industry too, where the business side can get jealous of the artist side and vice versa.
Well, an island sound obviously is deeply rooted in Hawaii's culture. How important is place and identity to the studio's mission?
Well, as you can see, I'm not Hawaiian. But the studio, as I say, we're the curators of this place. I'm a good listener. Brian's been here for many years and has already um, made a space for himself out here. I think they've allowed the culture out here has really welcomed Brian into what he does because he gives back to his industry in a way that
He really
that
does.
nobody really can. It's a perspective that is really needed and necessary,
Mhm.
and I think he's really respected for that. And I wanted to provide that for music. I just know this place is something that doesn't exist anywhere here and can really generate an ecosystem that can't be done anywhere else. And I'm willing to do it. It's a vision that I don't have on like paper. It's a unique opportunity for Hawaii. This place has always been a very special. Um, as Brian and I call it, it's an albatross and it's a unicorn. It's
Mhm.
kind of this
That's
both
a
thing.
perfect
Yeah, that's
description.
So we're trying to keep it as a unicorn because certainly nobody's ever going to build it again. And it's at the scale that is like a Disney or an Apple Studios type build. Like they would build a place of a quality like this. So if it goes away, um, there's not going to be a place like this, certainly in private hands, ever again. So to the layman or to the normal person, they're like, wasn't everybody recording at home? Why would you do that? And it's like, well, I wouldn't normally. This one's something different. It's special. So I think we can um, root it in Hawaiian culture a little more and have it be more of a professional outlet for the musicians here and make it a little more open to the public. And then Brian's great idea with doing the live music venue. The live venue is what really exposed this place to the local population and let people in here who had heard about it but never even knew it was here, and of course had never actually stepped through the door. And it's been nothing but great reviews, and people appreciate it.
What do you think studios play in shaping underground regional music movements?
Another great question. I think pop culture shapes directly and indirectly underground for every reason. Because underground music is made just as deliberately as pop music, I think, when you're trying to convey a message. And pop music is just trying to convey a message that's popular. And I think underground music is trying to specifically be unpopular
Mhm.
Mhm.
or essentially stay away from trends. I guess maybe that's the way they see the trends, and then they will omit that from their creative endeavors so that they can hopefully stay timeless or stay in that box or stay
Mhm.
outside of that box that
Mhm.
they don't want to
Right.
be.
Right.
Um, so I think it's all deliberate. Sometimes it's accidental, but it's just all different styles. Some of it is geared towards being popular. Some of it is geared towards being underground, dance music, folk music. I like Hawaiian
Mhm.
music. I didn't grow up on Hawaiian music. I never listened to any of it. So when I came here, it was like a whole new style of music and ways of looking at rhythm, beats, even slap key guitar, which I can't understand because that's exactly what it is. They're guitar tunings that are passed down from generation to generation. They're secret guitar tunings. So
Mhm.
you don't just
It's
tune to
amazing.
BEAD or it's
Mhm.
like
Amazing.
and then so I love that. That's authentic music that comes not from school but comes from your soul. And
Mhm.
the Aloha soul out here just has that already.
Oh,
You're
definitely.
already musical. Um, you feel it. I mean, I say like you're born with a bowl of poi and a ukulele. It's like I don't know why it is, but I think it's like the same thing we do on the mainland with our kids. It's like, hey, have a backup plan, right? You try to see a plan B, and out here the backup plan is a ukulele. It's
Mm.
like if you learn how to play music,
That's
Great.
you
yeah.
always
That's
got that. You can
great.
always go play around, and so I
Mhm.
find that most people they say I don't really play, I'm okay. You go, well, play something, and then you're like, what are you talking about? You're amazing. There's so much of that talent out here that just needs to be like nurtured or like given a little bit of incentive on, hey, why don't you try that? And they're like, really? You're right. That's amazing. And it makes me feel good to play that way. So
Ugh,
Mhm.
um,
it's gotta be a
there's just
great
lots of different
great
things. I
feeling.
think maybe my point of view can help be um, an assistance to what's happening here in Polynesian music and I'm not trying to change it. I'm not trying to dilute it. I'm not trying to
Mm.
make it something it's not, anglicize it or any of that, whatever you'd call. I'm just trying to give a fresh perspective.
Are there collaborations or even dream projects that you'd love to come alive in this space?
For the most part, I want to have more rock, country, and like live tracking with bands that come in here. And we have a few artists that have done that and that we've booked coming up that'll, I think, help get us more recognition and for that aspect. And that's really, I think, a lot of what we can offer that the other studios can't, that you can't do in a bedroom. Is having all the multiple spaces and the headphone cue systems through here that allow us to set all that up and make it seamless. And you can be on headphones tracking with your buddies in different rooms, but everybody's looking out the window at the guy being towed on his boat on a little banana toboggan. Like you can see all that looking from the studio window upstairs. You can't have. I don't think that exists anywhere. I don't think.
You've also spoken about creating opportunities for young filmmakers and musicians. How are you bringing that vision to life? Through scholarships, mentorships, or maybe discounted rates for emerging artists?
We did a class here that was through ICANN, which is a great place out here with through Angela LaPrette and a few other people, and they help. Similar, I think they're a nonprofit, but they help with the film industry and actors and different aspects of it and
That's
giving them an
wonderful.
education. So we work with them on a few different things, and we've done a few different events here, and one of which was an ADR class, and they worked with an actor named Christopher Sean, who's a well-known animation voiceover actor, and he's also an actor as well. And he came out to do the class, so he and I kind of got together and figured out a way to get 30 students in and out of here to show them how to do voiceover. So we'd split them up into groups, and I had like cameras and Zoom. So you were out in the lounge, and on the big TV, you could see a split screen of what was going on here in this room and in the booth. And we put a group in the booth and then a group in here, and then everybody would rotate. And while Christopher was in here directing the talent in the booth, also on Zoom. So we had this system, and it was really great to get them through and show them the process of getting in front of the microphone and seeing the picture and doing that, because it was actors in general don't always have that experience. I think you can act for the camera, but when you have to do voiceover, it's just like it's a totally different thing. So it was a little bit of that, trying to give them a little exposure on how to act for the camera. So we're doing more stuff like that. I've had other groups that do music education utilize the studio to come do some of their classes. We work with the Henry Capono Foundation a lot, and we have since the beginning. And they have their mission for the Henry Capono Foundation is just that. It's empowering and helping Hawaiian music and artists.
I mean, talk about consciousness and care. I mean, this is just beautiful. It's really beautiful.
So the lounge and the Velvet Monkey obviously have been exciting additions. What's your vision for expanding them? Where do you see them going, those live music experiences?
It helps the live musicians have a place to play in the way that we're doing it, which is a higher end Blue Note type thing that you have to work your way up to be able to play here, because you have to be a quality artist, et cetera, which goes along with what the studio is even to begin with, to kind of separate that from other places that they may play. It also allows the public to buy tickets to come in here and sit in the seats and see and be in this place that aren't performers and aren't artists themselves. We do live shows and serve food and drinks, and we do it all for profit. Like it's our thing. So that's unusual, which I don't know, maybe if another studio will copy that, but overall, there's so much value in what this place represents that you have to be mindful of it. It's a beacon here in the middle of the island that radiates outward. So whether you come here or not. So I hope that it can. I think it should. I'm trying to help this place live up to legend and create more and have it be a big piece of Hawaii for the music scene.
Looking ahead, what do you think the next phase is of Island Sound Studios, physically, creatively, even philosophically?
So we're refiguring out our next plan for the live venue side of it, taking what we learned over the last year. I think some of that's going to be doing some live streaming as well, since we have that, and trying to supplement.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Get artists of a tier that can actually sell tickets outside of Hawaii for a live stream while still keeping it rooted in Hawaii. It's hard. That's been the idea, is try to subtly find that bridge. It's really, I keep saying bridge because I think that's really what it is. It's needs to be a sustainable bridge for the music, a professional musician from Hawaii. So they can exist on the bridge. They don't have to be in one place or the other. It's like we can just take your time figuring out how to get to the rest of the world, with your music. But yeah, still trying to figure all that. Because the music industry is changing, so I don't want to lay down roots that need to be pulled up. I think partnering with other studios is the way to go for that creative side. We're doing more and more post production in ADR. I'm in the middle right now of dubbing Moana 2 in Olelo Hawaiian, which is a tremendously challenging project, but it's going to be great. So hopefully by the end of the year, you'll be able to go on Disney Plus and pick Moana 2 and scroll down to languages and pick Hawaiian, and then you'll be able to listen to the whole
Wow.
thing dubbed in Hawaiian, getting a
Wow.
lot of the original actors, which is going to be great. So stuff like that, that is, say, like it's an industry that's picking up. Like the translators that are doing all this are going to have quite a year ahead of them because everybody's going to want to have stuff in native Hawaiian. There's going to be what's going to be the B movie of like what they do when Pirates of the Caribbean came out, and all of a sudden there was all these really cheap, crappy pirate movies that came out
Oh
that went
yeah,
straight to
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
video.
yeah.
exactly.
There's
It's
going to be
true.
there's going to be all those Chief of War ones that are going to start coming out. So
Right.
but it's going to be, it's going to be funny. It's going to, it's going to be good. Hopefully, a lot of people will get work out of it.
If you and Brian could leave one imprint on culture through island sound, what would it be?
I think that the studio itself is already part of history. It's already got its legacy. I just want to elevate the legacy of this place to its next level and be a part of that. And with family and everything, legacy is you know I left the ego behind when I stopped being a lead singer for a band. When it comes to wanting to be known for me or for that, my
Mhm.
talent, I think this place is something that really deserves to have the recognition. And if I can be part of the team behind helping it, that's great. I'd love to have that on it. And I'd be even happier if it was a Spicer endeavor and not a Kyle endeavor. But it being, I love hearing when
Lovely.
people say Spicer Brothers. It's like, um, that's cool. I
That
never
is
said it. I
cool.
didn't come up with that, but that really is the truth. I really enjoy that aspect of it. It's a challenging effort to make something like this profitable in the modern world. And I wouldn't recommend it as a business model, but I think we're trying to push the envelope enough in an industry that really needs this change. And there's not a lot of people in this position to do it, who can make a meaningful difference. And I think that I am, and I think this place is, especially in working with other studios in this professional industry of making music. I think we can help shape it.
It's just that's beautiful. When you talked about the Spicer Brothers, I literally got a lump in my throat. That's really lovely.
Has there been a story from a session or a moment at Island Sound that made you say, this is why we did this?
Some of the sessions over the last 6 months have been rewarding because they've been complicated and we've pulled it off. The last live session I did a few weeks ago was awesome. It was pretty flawless. It's been rewarding, I think, at this point.
Well, it sounds like there's a culmination of many events that have really transpired to pull an amazing story together. If you could invite any living musician or filmmaker to record or create at the studio, who would it be and why?
I would love to have Paul McCartney come do some sessions here. We did have Empire of the Sun came here last year, and they'd been here before and made a record. And so I ended up working on a lot of it with them, and it was dirt fun. It was so much fun and creative. That's like just coming up with stuff off the top of your head and doing it. So that's how they write, which is great. I would love to have John Fogerty come here. I've been trying to get them to come record here because again, you can record wherever you want. And, he's like, oh, I don't want to go to Hawaii and record. I'll just go record. What I don't. So, but I'd love to have them come record here just because it'd be good to work with him again in this space. For my own use, I would love to have creatives like Empire of the Sun, Dave Gahan, Depeche Mode, any of those types that sit in a room and just cook up all kinds of ideas
Right.
with the technology that are unusual, that aren't,
Mhm.
let's write a pop song today. Let's write,
Mhm.
another song to sell. I like doing that. I like the technical aspect. I would love for this place to run more automated with me managing it, overseeing it, and working on less specific sessions other than my own. Um, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Well, Kyle, we have reached the end of the show. We end each show with the significant seven. So these are 7 rapid fire, introspective questions that are the same for every guest. So, Signy, take it away.
If you had to choose one word that holds the most significance in your life, whether it defines you, guides you, or challenges you, what would it be and why?
Aloha. It's a word I've always known and always was part of without realizing it when I lived in LA. And once I was here, that word describes my life, I think, the most.
What is the most significant piece of advice you've ever received?
Trust your instincts.
What is the most significant risk you've ever taken?
The studio. Absolutely.
What is the most significant life lesson that you've ever learned?
My children, raising them.
What significant moment in your life changed how you see the world?
My children. My second child, I think, is where I really opened my eyes to how different everything really was.
What significant relationship do you feel has shaped you the most?
I would almost say my relationship with myself, um, because I don't really have a mentor per se. I've never really had like a mentor or a person that shaped me.
Mhm.
So I've always relied on myself to be open to other people's ideas. And I think that really is the most helpful thing that I've had, mm, you know, because a lot of times you rely on other people to give it to you. And really, it's not from somebody else. You can get advice, but if you trust in yourself, maybe it'll take a while before you feel like you know what you're doing. But I think that's the best thing in a room of experts. If you can hear your own voice through that, you're onto something.
What is the most significant truth you've come to understand about yourself?
Maybe I do know what I'm doing, and I'm a good dad. I think, yeah.
Kyle, thank you so much for joining us, and it's been a pleasure. So excited to share all this and bring more awareness to the studio, what it's doing for the community. So powerful and really, really amazing what you and Brian are both doing. So anything we can do to help.
Absolutely. It's really beautiful.
Appreciate you guys. You have to come visit, come see the place.
I'm so touched for your generous amount of time, and thank you so much. And yes, blessings on this venture, and mahalo, mahalo.
Mahalo. Thank you guys. Aloha.
Until next time, everybody take care.